Imagine walking into a room where two people are quietly whispering. The moment you enter, they suddenly stop talking and look in another direction. Your mind instantly starts working. Were they talking about you? Did you do something wrong? Why did they suddenly become quiet? Your brain begins trying to connect clues, even though you have no numbers, no equations, and no data to calculate. Yet somehow, your mind still tries to figure out what might be happening. Now here is the surprising part. More than 2,000 years ago, humans built a machine that worked in a strangely similar way. When scientists finally understood what it did, it completely changed how we think about ancient intelligence and technology. In the year 1900, a group of Greek sponge divers were exploring the seafloor near a small island called Antikythera. One diver suddenly surfaced in shock and told the crew that the ocean floor was covered with what looked like statues of dead people. When archaeologists investigated the site, they realized it was actually the wreck of a Roman cargo ship that had sunk more than 2,000 years ago. Many-Mendos, Menachem Knolls. Inside the wreck were many ancient treasures, including statues, coins, pottery, and jewelry. But among these artifacts, researchers noticed something strange. There was a corroded lump of metal and wood that looked like nothing important. At first glance, it appeared to be just another broken object, destroyed by centuries underwater. But when scientists cleaned the fragments carefully, they noticed something impossible hidden inside. There were small bronze gears. Dozens of them. Each gear had carefully cut teeth and fit perfectly with the others, almost like the inside of a mechanical clock. The discovery immediately created confusion, because according to historians, technology like this should not have existed yet. Complex gear systems of this kind were believed to appear more than 1,000 years later in medieval Europe. So the discovery raised a huge question. What kind of machine was this? And who had the knowledge to build it so long ago? For decades, the object remained a mystery. Many pieces were missing, and the remaining fragments were badly damaged. Scientists suspected it might be some kind of instrument, but no one fully understood how it worked. Then in the 1950s, researchers began examining the fragments using X-ray technology to see inside the corroded metal. What they discovered surprised the entire scientific world. The device was not random machinery. It was actually a calculator, but not the kind we use today. This machine could predict the movements of the sun, the moon, and even several planets in the sky. Today we call this incredible device the Antikythera mechanism. Many historians believe it is the oldest gear-driven machine ever discovered. Some scientists even describe it as the first computer built by humans. But the most fascinating part is not only what the device calculated, but how it performed those calculations. Without electricity, programming, or digital technology. Most computers we use today are digital systems. Your phone, laptop, and television all store information using binary code made of zeros and ones. Every image, sound, and video you experience is actually a huge collection of these digital signals. Your device constantly translates those signals into colors, motion, and sound so that we can understand them. Digital systems are powerful and reliable, but they do not store reality itself. Instead, they store symbols that represent reality. For example, imagine watching a high-resolution movie. Behind the scenes, that movie contains billions of binary numbers. Your computer must constantly convert those numbers into images and audio that resemble the real world. Now compare that with something much simpler, like a vinyl record. When music is recorded on a vinyl disc, sound waves physically carve tiny grooves into the surface of the record. When the disc spins and a needle moves through those grooves, the vibrations turn directly back into sound. The record is not storing symbols that represent sound. It is storing a physical shape created by the sound itself. This type of system is called analog systems, represent real signals directly, instead of breaking them into separate numbers. For centuries, many human technologies worked this way by transforming movement, pressure, or light directly into readable information. The Antikythera mechanism worked using this same principle. Imagine holding a small wooden box with several circular dials on the front. When you turn one dial to set a specific date, a hidden network of bronze gears begins to rotate inside the device. One gear pushes another, and that gear moves the next one. Slowly, several metal pointers begin sliding across the face of the instrument. One pointer shows the position of the sun, another shows the position of the moon. Other pointers represent the 5 planets known in the ancient Greek world, including Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These objects move through 12 constellations, known as the zodiac. By turning the dial to any date, the machine could show where these celestial bodies would appear in the sky. The device could do even more. One gear system rotated a small sphere, painted half black and half white, to represent the phases of the moon. Another dial tracked a long astronomical pattern known as the Saros cycle, which lasts about 6,585 days and helps predict solar and lunar eclipses. Think about how extraordinary that is. More than 2,000 years ago, someone built a mechanical device capable of modeling the movements of the sky itself, using nothing but carefully designed gears. When modern scientists studied the mechanism more closely, they discovered something even more impressive. The gears were not random. Each one represented a mathematical rule that describes how celestial objects move. For example, the moon does not travel around Earth at a perfectly constant speed. Its motion speeds up and slows down slightly. Yet the Antikythera mechanism recreated this behavior using a clever arrangement of gears. Just 13 interlocking gears reproduced the moon's irregular orbit with remarkable precision. For an ancient device, this level of accuracy is astonishing. But the discovery raises a deeper question. If ancient engineers were capable of building something this sophisticated, why did technology like this disappear for more than 1,000 years? And even more intriguing, what does this machine reveal about the way humans process information and understand the world? Now, here is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Because when scientists continued studying the Antikythera mechanism, they realized something deeper was happening inside that small box of gears. The machine was not simply showing information. It was modeling reality itself. Each gear represented a rule about how the universe behaves. When those gears moved together, they recreated the motion of the sun, the moon, and the planets across the sky. In other words, the device was not calculating the universe step by step like a modern computer. Instead, it was physically simulating how the universe moves. Every rotation of a gear represented a real astronomical pattern. When one gear turned, it pushed another gear, and that movement carried information forward through the entire system. The machine did not need electricity, code, or digital instructions. The motion of the gears was the computation itself. This idea might sound simple, but it reveals something powerful about how information can be processed. In an analog system, the machine becomes a physical model of the process it represents. The closer the machine resembles the real system, the more naturally it produces accurate results. And this idea leads to a surprising connection with something very familiar to all of us. The human brain works in a surprisingly similar way. Many people imagine the brain as if it were a digital computer. We think of it calculating logical steps, storing exact data, and retrieving information like files from a hard drive. But neuroscience suggests that the brain actually processes information in a much more fluid and continuous way. Instead of using binary code like zeros and ones, the brain communicates through signals that vary in strength and timing. Billions of neurons send electrical impulses through complex networks, and those signals continuously change depending on what we see, hear, and feel. The brain does not break reality into perfectly separate pieces of data. Instead, it processes patterns, relationships, and gradual changes in signals. Think about how quickly you recognize a friend's face in a crowd. Your brain does not scan a digital database of images and compare them one by one. Instead, millions of neurons respond instantly to patterns of shape, movement, and color. Recognition happens almost immediately because the brain is matching patterns rather than calculating exact numbers. Or consider how you sense tension in a conversation. You may notice a slight pause before someone answers, a change in their tone of voice, or a subtle shift in their expression. None of these signals can be measured as simple numbers in your mind, yet your brain combines them to form an intuitive understanding of the situation. This type of processing is continuous and flexible, much like an analog system responding to real signals from the environment. In many ways, the human mind behaves more like an analog machine than a digital computer. This is why humans are incredibly good at recognizing patterns, understanding emotions, and navigating complex social situations. Our brains are constantly building internal models of the world, adjusting them as new information appears. Interestingly, Engineers once built machines that worked using this same analog principle. During the 20th century, scientists created analog computers using mechanical systems and electrical circuits to simulate real-world processes. These machines could model things like airplane flight, ocean waves, and weather patterns. Instead of calculating every variable step by step, the machines recreated the physical relationships between those variables. When the system ran, the result emerged naturally from the interaction of its parts. But over time, digital computers became more popular because they are extremely reliable and easy to control. Digital systems can repeat the same operation millions of times with perfect consistency. This reliability helped create the modern technological world we live in today. However, digital computers also face a challenge. Because they break reality into discrete pieces of information, they often need enormous processing power to simulate complex systems. For example, modern weather forecasting requires huge supercomputers performing billions of calculations every second. Even then, the results are still only approximations of the real atmosphere. Analog systems approach problems differently. Instead of calculating every detail separately, they recreate the behavior of the system itself. This is why the Antikythera mechanism was able to model astronomical cycles using only a network of gears. The relationships between the gears mirrored the mathematical relationships between celestial bodies. When the gears turned, the sky itself was being simulated. Today, something interesting is happening again in science and technology. Researchers studying artificial intelligence and neuroscience are beginning to explore new forms of analog computing. Some experimental computer chips now mimic the behavior of neurons, allowing signals to flow continuously rather than switching strictly between zeros and ones. These systems are inspired directly by how the brain processes information. In a strange way, modern technology may be rediscovering ideas that existed thousands of years ago. The engineers who built the Antikythera mechanism did not have modern tools. Yet, they understood a powerful principle. They understood that a machine could represent reality directly through relationships and movement instead of abstract code. This ancient invention also teaches us an important psychological lesson. Humans often believe that progress always moves forward in a straight line. We assume that newer technology must always be smarter than older ideas. But history shows that knowledge can be lost, forgotten, and rediscovered centuries later. The Antikythera mechanism reminds us that curiosity and creativity have always been part of human nature. Even in the ancient world, people observed patterns in the sky, asked deep questions about how the universe works, and built tools to explore those patterns. Their machine was not just a scientific instrument. It was a physical expression of human curiosity and intelligence. So what can we learn from this ancient device today? First, powerful ideas do not always require complex technology. Sometimes, simple systems working together can produce remarkable results. Second, the way we represent information shapes the way we understand the world. Analog systems remind us that reality is continuous and interconnected, rather than divided into perfect pieces. And finally, the future of innovation may not only come from inventing something completely new. Sometimes, it comes from rediscovering ideas that were hidden in the past. Next time you look up at the night sky, remember that more than 2,000 years ago, someone built a small box of gears that could model the movements of those same stars and planets. Even today, that machine continues to challenge our assumptions about technology, intelligence, and the incredible creativity of the human mind. If this story made you see history in a different way, take a moment to think about this question. What other forgotten ideas from the past might still have the power to change the future? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring human psychology, intelligence, and the hidden stories behind science and history, consider subscribing to The Thinking Mind.